Where the mountains breathe, the story of a people begins. From stone and storm, the land learned the rhythm of endurance.
In the hush of pines, humanity first whispered its name.
Fire became memory, and memory became song. Across silent waters, the first journeys were dreams made wood.
Unity was born, not of conquest, but of shared flame.
The age of metal gave their courage a body of sound. Paths became bridges between mountains and the endless sea.
Here, every breath carried both forest and ocean.
Empire found its edge where the Alps kissed the dawn. Rome carved roads, but could not carve the spirit. Art became the mirror through which conquest softened. Civilization came draped in marble and memory.
Old gods lingered where new prayers began.
The world changed, yet the mountains never bowed.
When empires fell, the earth remembered their ashes.
They came not as invaders, but as heirs to silence. A nation began where hands shaped belonging.
Labor turned wilderness into the language of sustenance.
Sound became soul. The valley awakened.
Freedom once had no name, only the pulse of earth.
In the silence of ritual, power was a whisper, not a roar. Here, sovereignty was spoken in the language of the land.
Knowledge glowed quietly, while swords rusted in peace. Words became walls to guard what could not be conquered.
Culture took root in the rhythm of everyday hands. Beauty itself became their unspoken anthem.
A name, once whispered, now thundered through the ages. Honor was not granted, it was inherited by silence.
Strength was born where craft met devotion.
Faith and knowledge intertwined like roots beneath the soil.
Civilization flickered alive within a sea of darkness.
Duty burned brighter than fear ever could.
Lullabies carried the memory of survival.
The world knocked gently on Slovenia's quiet door.
Gratitude became the bridge between heaven and home. Even the smallest paths carried echoes of eternity.
Connection was carved, plank by plank, heart by heart.
Every harvest was a quiet hymn to endurance.
Joy survived where no empire could reach. carried prayer on his farthest than armies ever marched. Even in stillness, the soul of the land kept breathing. Nature wrote its poetry in a language beyond words.
Freedom was born, not from crowns, but from flight.
In the silence of snow, the spirit learned to endure. History began as a flicker against the dark.
Unity was shaped stone by stone, dream by dream.
Renewal was the mountain's quiet promise.
Purity dwelled where water met sky.
Shadows lengthened, but courage stood unbroken. Hope found shape in the meeting of heaven and earth.
Survival became the truest faith of all.
Every reflection held the memory of beginnings. Light moved forward, even when names were forgotten.
Time rang softly through stone and faith alike.
Nature reminded all that power begins in silence.
Memory became the nation's oldest inheritance.
Morning was the hymn that never stopped returning.
Duty traveled on hooves, faster than wind.
Life flowed eternal through every thaw.
Beauty was worship, made tangible.
Strength meant knowing when to let go.
After every darkness, the mountains forgave. Faith was the fire that outlasted every empire.
Culture survived in threads and memory.
Joy was labor dressed in rhythm.
Prayer was breath shaped by centuries.
Words found roots in the soil of longing. Dreams anchored themselves in the mirror of still water.
Heaven leaned close enough to touch.
The land rewarded those who spoke its patience.
Ritual and earth became one breath.
Music turned solitude into belonging.
Every wall was a promise to endure. Identity shifted, but spirit remained unmoved.
Renewal was their quiet defiance.
The past was never lost, only resting.
Hope climbed every height, unafraid of storms. To see first light was to remember origin.
Devotion glowed brighter than gold.
Music became the heartbeat of belonging.
Time folded its wings and waited.
The journey itself was the homeland.
Warmth was victory over endless grey.
Life persisted where memory had cracked.
Each sound was a seed of continuity.
exchange built bridges stronger than iron.
Dawn repainted every wound the night had made.
Dreams always found a way downstream.
Harmony was their quiet form of power.
Revelation came softly, like mist becoming light. Infinity slept gently upon their waters. And thus, the land remembered its own awakening.
The age of kingdoms rose from the silence of valleys. What was unity became memory, written in mist.
The Habsburg shadow lengthened across the Emerald Hills.
Knowledge flickered like faith beneath foreign rule. Power spoke in fire, while prayer answered in ash. Loyalty bowed to heaven before it bowed to kings. The land endured what banners could not.
Ink became the new chain of empires. Silence was the only victor of endless wars.
Faith alone crossed the borders that armies drew. Divinity and destiny quarreled in every echo.
Survival meant bending without breaking.
Time reclaimed what ambition could not.
Every river carried stories the crowns forgot.
Hope was mortar mixed with tears. Faith and power braided themselves into chains.
Redemption marched beside conquest.
Even in darkness, the land refused to yield.
Love endured where kingdoms crumbled.
The distance between halls and fields widened like night.
Duty often spoke louder than doubt.
Salvation was built stone by silent stone.
Faith rang in every strike of iron.
Trade replaced conquest, but the balance remained fragile.
Even death learned the language of the mountains.
Grief became the only certainty of life.
Nature cleansed what man could only wound.
Compassion was rebellion in holy disguise.
The soil held both sorrow and rebirth.
Memory whispered through every shattered stone.
Law arrived before mercy.
Sound itself became a border.
Illumination was born of quiet endurance.
Freedom slept beneath the weight of obedience.
No fortress could outlast the sky.
Legends were the only empire of the poor.
Lines drawn in ink would soon be redrawn in blood. Each sound a heartbeat of defiance.
In the heart of ruin, courage found new breath.
Sanctuary glimmered like dawn in despair. Peace was always framed by distance.
Restoration began in the smallest of hands. Nature mourned what man forgot.
Faith traveled further than kingdoms. Healing began where memory refused to fade.
Hope was always one flame against the wind.
Evil heaven paused to listen.
Beauty endured long after victory died.
The land learned to sing its own lament.
Renewal was their inheritance of endurance.
Understanding was rebellion against despair.
Power perched where freedom once stood.
Faith rebuilt what fire erased.
Darkness, too, could be a teacher.
Grace danced beside intrigue.
Wine carried the memory of peace.
Empire stitched sound into distance.
The land absorbed the rhythm of footsteps and silence. Urgency was the Empire's heartbeat.
Nature spoke the language of warning.
Honor survived the loss of victory.
Faith was their answer to every silence.
The sea became their passage to renewal.
Memory froze where no footsteps remained.
Preservation was resistance written in oak.
Dawn forgave what darkness had claimed.
The future begun in her open hands.
Elsewhere, silence watched from the mountains.
Unity existed only in the sound of faith.
The old world still whispered beneath the soil.
Industry hummed the hymn of ambition.
Cities, too, dreamt beneath their bridges.
Sound bound generations together like prayer.
Authority arrived, dressed in politeness.
The empire's breath reached even the quietest valleys.
The pen defied what the sword decreed.
Beauty endured as the final rebellion.
Diplomacy replaced blood, but not ambition.
Stillness became the truest act of devotion.
Trade carried fragments of peace between storms.
Power never sleeps, only shifts its form.
Paper bound what swords had once divided.
Abundance sang softly of forgiveness. Renewal smiled from the cracks of history.
Duality was the nature of survival.
Even suffering became a song of belonging.
Every storm left behind a cathedral of light. Life continued as the empire looked elsewhere.
Destiny crossed softly between shadows.
Seasons were the empire's only true ruler.
Peace flowed only where memory allowed.
Creation survived, even after purpose was forgotten.
Eternity watched every fleeting age.
Rest was the reward for centuries of endurance.
Words rekindled what swords had silenced.
The crossroads of empires still belonged to the mountains. Power glittered, while the valleys whispered their restraint.
Loyalty was demanded long before it was believed.
Empire moved with elegance and hidden weight.
Beauty persisted even beneath occupation's hush.
Thought itself
became a quiet revolution.
Pride bent, but never broke.
The empire's echo carried through every gorge.
Even abundance carried the taste of restraint.
Words traveled further than armies dared.
Knowledge was given, not belonging.
Hands obeyed what hearts resisted.
Discipline replaced the song of the soil.
Prosperity spoke a borrowed tongue.
Strength questioned its own purpose.
Power shimmered before it fractured.
Hope passed quietly from mouth to mouth.
Resistance was baked into daily life. Freedom spoke in flame and silence alike.
Every beat declared a promise unfulfilled.
Courage was the only weapon they owned.
Loyalty weighed less than survival. History awoke in thunder.
Love became rebellion's quietest act.
Winter mourned what justice could not save.
Music remembered when the world refused. Identity survived, even without breath.
Words of control disguised as grace.
Beauty endured long after obedience faded.
The soil forgave before the rulers did.
Art whispered truths too fragile for speech.
Faith became the disguise of dissent.
Order thundered louder than justice.
Nature echoed the empire's unrest.
Ink became the weapon of the silent.
Wonder survived where reason failed. Beauty carried the grief of centuries.
Joy was borrowed, never owned.
Freedom still lived in their rhythm.
Memory rebuilt what conquest erased.
Authority glittered most when truth dimmed.
Birds became her invisible armor.
Power slept while rivers carried witness.
Kindness endured where politics could not. Silence returned, patient as forgiveness.
Even empires bowed before the mountain. Change rode the wind before anyone dared name it.
Ideas move faster than armies.
The night breathed the first syllables of freedom. Blood remembered what silence denied.
Words became bullets wrapped in mercy.
Sound rose where speech was forbidden.
Rebellion tasted of iron and rain.
Purification came too lame for peace.
Authority cracked beneath the weight of awakening.
Even chains could not mute faith.
Creation bloomed in shadow.
Knowledge went underground to survive.
Reverence faded, replaced by reflection.
Renewal was the quietest revolution.
Culture whispered the nation awake.
Nature forgave what memory could not.
The heart of a people refused to still.
Language became the seed of liberty.
Dawn finally belonged to their own voices.
Power rarely looks toward its roots. Thought alone defied the empire's winter. The revolution began in whispers and wind. Faith baptized, rebellion in silence.
Knowledge was the first true independence.
Calm was the empire's favorite illusion. Modernity arrived like thunder in the dark. Connection replaced conquest.
Hope traveled on sound, not roads.
Art remembered what politics erased.
Victory felt smaller than peace.
Memory became their only monument.
Waiting became its own kind of courage.
Tradition burned brighter than empire.
Every word was a small resurrection.
The divine watched history with quiet patience.
Labor demanded what lineage denied.
Progress followed the veins of the land.
Renewal returned, faithful as time. Power trembled at the sound of awakening.
Mourning became the cradle of unity.
Language turned loss into identity.
Creation always follows rain.
Freedom fluttered where fear once ruled.
Eternity watched empires fall, unmoved.
Their voices rose where borders fell.
The crown dimmed, but the people began to shine. The century turned, and the mountains began to speak.
Ink became the voice of the reborn.
Language awoke like fire in the cold.
Knowledge rose where rebellion had fallen.
Freedom hid in the hands of the quiet.
Thought itself became defiance.
Truth finally learned to spell its name.
The sun bears witness to the seeds we sow today. Our stories are the soil, our laughter.
Ideas never slept, even under watchful eyes.
Renewal moved gently, like morning light.
Letters became the shape of belonging.
Memory was reborn through sound.
Art found its stage in awakening hearts.
Education became an act of rebellion.
Their voices cut through centuries of sight.
Identity began in a single name written true.
Knowledge was a flame worth guarding.
History returned through the mouths of the humble.
Melody became prayer, and prayer became pride.
Hope unfurled before the empire even noticed.
could not kasuf the word itself.
Freedom hid where stars could guide. Courage lived in the ordinary.
Nature echoed their defiant hymn.
Faith traveled in silence, loyal to truth.
Each light was a heartbeat of resistance.
Culture moved faster than armies.
Beauty spoke in the language of endurance.
Creation and danger shared the same perfume.
The spirit burned brighter than fear.
Words became banners, unseen by kings.
The land itself began to sing.
Identity took form in ink and patience.
Joy became their declaration of existence.
Literature became the anthem of the forgotten.
Tenderness was the quietest revolution.
Language stepped into the light. Art proved the nation was awake.
Pride found voice in innocence.
Words multiplied like stars.
Identity lived in thread and prayer.
Heritage sang itself into the morning.
Art survived by learning to disappear.
Geography became hope on a wall.
Labor and liberty shared the same soil. Connection bridged the mountain solitude.
Martyrdom wrote the next chapter. Gratitude spoke through flame and silence. The flow of time carried courage downstream.
Modernity arrived, hesitant but sure.
Art met progress beneath the same breath.
Information became emancipation.
Inspiration survived its maker.
Justice finally found rhythm.
Harmony replaced silence as their language.
The next generation
learned to dream aloud.
Gratitude became the nation's quiet anthem. Unity was built in echoes.
Hope danced in winter's arms.
Power feared what words could do.
Revolution learned to whisper.
Even imprisonment could not silence sunrise.
Compassion kept the nation alive.
Solidarity became their shelter.
Return was its own victory.
The soul of the land finally spoke.
Expression triumphed where arms could not.
Beauty replaced battle as heritage.
Enlightenment belonged to the horizon.
Ideas toasted themselves to courage.
Art wove comfort into defiance.
Equality became the new prayer.
Change rumbled at the empire's heart. Faith and labor intertwined in light.
Connection became a declaration.
Unity glowed in silence.
The future learned its own tongue.
Continuity was their quiet triumph.
Freedom was no longer a secret.
Power feared its own reflection.
Heritage had found a new heartbeat.
Joy became their revolution.
Faith stood hand in hand with freedom.
Even weapons listened to hope.
Celebration burned brighter than conquest.
Love was the first law of liberty.
Art returned as life's reward.
Creation sealed the century's promise.
A nation once voiceless learned to sing.
The century turned with open arms.
Beauty was now a form of faith.
The future began to laugh again.
Memory had finally been honored.
Gratitude became the bridge to tomorrow. Peace was no longer borrowed. It was earned.
The century opened its eyes beneath a trembling sky. Progress and peril shared the same rails. Loyalty became the uniform of survival.
Fair was one of the century's perseverance.
Even stone learned the language of war.
Compassion bled beside courage.
Nature itself wept steel and flame.
Love endured where hope could not.
Identity clung to memory in the dark.
Faith survived in the silence after gunfire. Beauty hid beneath the ruin of nations. Mercy defied the machinery of death.
Glory dissolved faster than blood.
Survival became the architecture of peace.
Forgiveness was the sound of rebuilding.
silence thundered louder than war.
Innocence reclaimed what iron had lost.
Hope redrew borders more tenderly than kings. Freedom arrived, fragile and brilliant.
Reflection was the century's quiet rebellion.
The machine replaced the drumbeat of fields. Labor became the empire's new prayer.
The world had become louder, yet lonelier.
Truth hid behind painted smiles.
Care disguised itself as caution. History repeated its lesson in harsher tones.
Shadows returned, but so did resolve.
Resistance grew from roots of silence.
Courage wore no uniform.
Freedom breathed again among the trees.
Endurance became their anthem. Iron met defiance in every gorge.
Rápido, métanse ahí. Cúbranse bien.
Dios te salve, María, llena eres de gracia.
Speed was hope's disguise.
Even captivity could not chain conviction.
Civilization trembled beneath its own invention.
Loss became the only language left. Mourning and pride shared the same tear.
Victory looked nothing like joy.
Creation began again, quietly.
A new chapter wore familiar scars.
Brotherhood outlived the battlefield.
Sound carried the promise of beginning.
Healing began with color.
Education was resistance reborn.
Life reclaimed the language of soil.
Hope believed in harmony once more.
Industry sang the anthem of recovery.
Knowledge became the nation's new weapon.
Vision rebuilt where fire had ruled.
Harmony returned, louder than memory. Art healed faster than politics.
Nature exhaled relief into the century.
Peace finally found small hands. Equality wore the smile of routine.
Stories became the heartbeat of unity.
Idealism returned, dressed in youth.
Light learned to stand alone.
Harmony shimmered, but cracks had begun. Music bridged what politics divided.
Peace trembled, but refused to fall.
Destiny began whispering of change.
Youth rehearsed the language of freedom.
Truth prepared its return.
Strength remembered its roots.
Control looked fragile beneath the storm.
Peace survived in domestic prayers. Faith and freedom march together.
Patriotism was reborn in innocence.
The world watched as silence cracked.
Power negotiated with inevitability.
Hope sounded familiar again.
Freedom was written in trembling ink.
Liberation arrived with the dawn.
History became personal again.
The land remembered what it once was.
Creation bloomed from ruin once more.
Council.
Color reclaimed the gray century.
The future finally had a face.
Words crown the victory of spirit.
Music became their new constitution. Roots replaced graves with renewal.
Innocence became the ambassador of peace.
The nation stood reborn between fire and light.
After all the shadows, they had become the dawn.
The newborn nation stretched beneath its own sunrise.
Reconstruction was both ritual and rebirth.
Geography had become a matter of destiny.
Words now carried the weight of freedom.
Stability grew from honest soil.
Patriotism smiled in the hands of the young.
Music.
Modern life hummed like a promise kept.
Peace had become part of the scenery.
Normalcy felt like a miracle.
Democracy learned to speak in measured tones.
Truth re-entered the room, trembling but real. Creativity was liberty in color.
Progress remembered its sacred view.
Connection became the architecture of faith. Simplicity returned as the highest luxury.
Choice itself was victory.
Freedom felt weightless in motion.
Celebration echoed responsibility.
Borders softened into bridges.
Unity became a language of trust.
Connection turned geography into opportunity.
Curiosity became their inheritance.
That is right.
Tradition shook hands with technology. Modernity hummed through mountain veins.
Discovery replaced despair as the national instinct.
Integration glowed like rebirth.
Harmony, united, past and present. Generations stitched continuity by hand.
The world had finally discovered their calm.
Technology carried the same old soul.
Art thrived between drops of change.
Innovation replaced inheritance.
Energy turned radiant with conscience.
Unity found rhythm in diversity.
Beauty passed easily between generations. Nature and progress shared the same frame.
The narrative had shifted to creation.
Democracy was no longer fragile. It breathed.
We must look at the long-term structural issues
The culture, however, suggests immediate intervention is necessary.
Peace, too, had its struggles.
Art refused to fall silent.
Renewal began with hands, not policies.
Every rebuild rewrote the century.
Change began in the smallest rituals.
The new battle was for balance.
Ocean had become identity.
The city glowed like a living gallery. Compassion turned into infrastructure.
Belonging now had many names.
Energy, too, learned humility.
Education guarded the flame of equality.
Words adapted, but never aged. Aged.
Innovation bowed to identity.
Tradition danced with invention.
The land remained the truest witness.
Democracy tuned itself to harmony.
Unity deepened into belonging. Knowledge flowed faster than rivers.
Distance dissolved into light.
Innovation rooted itself in soil.
The future shimmered in reflection. Beauty reconciled with sorrow.
Hope took new shapes.
Solidarity sang from balconies.
Celebration became gratitude in motion.
Stillness crowned progress. Discovery healed more than wounds.
Partnership became permanence.
Color stitched together what time once divided.
The anthem of peace played softly again.
Nature and progress shared the same breath.
Memory glowed in gentle motion.
Youth continued the unfinished song.
Faith stood renewed in glass and steel. Renewal had become the rhythm of life.
Normalcy became the quiet miracle.
Dreams learn to fly again.
Memory became architecture.
Peace moved through daily steps.
Creativity found beauty in forgotten corners.
The sacred and modern found harmony.
Progress hummed with quiet pride.
We're always finding new ways to share our experiences out here. Storytelling evolved, not vanished.
We stand united, voices strong and free.
Change had learned to shine.
Stability shimmered through the storm.
Peace had become the nation's rhythm.
Renewal was now a collective ritual.
Science pursued harmony, not power.
Tradition still guarded innovation's door.
This land is our legacy, etched in our souls. A heritage whispered.
Future danced across the sky.
Serenity had become sovereignty.
Connection reached even the quietest hearts.
Pride flowed through innovation.
Design learned kindness. Sound shimmered like sunlight reborn. History smiled back at them.
Modernity gleamed with nostalgia. Legacy flowed like ink. Nature applauded progress. Light traced the geography of hope.
Perspective widened to embrace the world.
Culture remained the heartbeat of progress.
Innovation learned the rhythm of nature.
Every light carried a promise.
Heritage adapted, not diminished.
Morning had learned to belong.
Color replaced division.
Remembrance
evolved into peace.
Unity meant inclusion.
The future had found its conscience.
Abundance sang again in familiar tones.
The land and light finally spoke one language.
Joy had become the new endurance.
The journey had led back to light. Maturity shimmered without arrogance.
Gratitude united where pain once did.
The story now belonged to everyone.
Art became the new history book.
Memory floated between generations. Eternity smiled upon progress.
The nation breathed in celebration.
Serenity was now their inheritance.
Freedom had become the rhythm of being.
Time itself began to forgive.
Innocence was history's true reward.
Tradition whispered its last lullaby.
Heaven leaned close enough to listen.
Eternity exhaled through stone.
Faith no longer demanded. It simply was.
Time moved gently through its echoes.
The mountain lived in every imagination.
Each sound was a memory made visible.
Flight became faith, translated into motion.
Legacy survived in melody.
Celebration turned to remembrance.
Even darkness carried small suns.
Freedom rested, but never slept.
Beauty had become the keeper of truth. Mountains remembered before mankind did.
Roots reconciled what history divide.
Sound rose like a prayer without words.
Memory drifted peacefully into eternity.
Night became a gentle mirror.
Love endured the silence of centuries. Each note carried the weight of peace.
Hope learned to float again.
Illumination came softly, like truth remembered.
Modernity exhaled contentment.
Continuity lived in the simplest acts.
Time itself participated in healing.
The new century rediscovered reverence.
Labor and grace were no longer separate.
The nation glowed in quiet unity.
Memory had learned gentleness.
Heaven mirrored its trust in earth.
Nature sang what no words could finish.
The future sang without fear.
Energy and grace became the same word.
Gratitude echoed longer than victory. Pilgrimage had turned to peace.
Silence followed, perfect and whole.
Joy survived the weight of history.
Imagination kept the nation young.
Memory folded softly into light.
Even one light was enough for forever.
Time bowed quietly before the eternal.
Flow itself was the meaning.
Creation sealed its vow to memory.
Purity remembered its birthplace.
Gratitude became their religion.
Past and progress harmonized at last.
Water carried all voices home.
Wonder inherited the world.
Life began again, endlessly. Illumination turned into gratitude. Even the night surrendered gracefully.
The nation now lived in crayons and light.
Continuity felt holy.
Creation inhaled its own peace. Contentment had no need for words.
The present had finally become eternal.
Light remembered every tear as sacred.
Heaven learned the shape of gratitude. Each tone, a heartbeat of history reborn.
Knowledge smiled at the horizon.
Revelation needed no words.
Progress bowed before wonder.
Governance had become human again.
Spirit and matter reconciled in light.
The story continued through the air itself.
Eternity draped itself over the familiar.
Time folded gently
into peace. The living kept faith with the unseen.
Purity was no longer lost, it lived. Freedom transcended every century.
The river sang the same song forever.
Heaven met its reflection and smiled.
Song became prayer, prayer became life.
Creation itself bowed to serenity. The land rose again, whole and luminous. Even silence learned to shine.
Flow became eternity in motion.
The story no longer needed words.
Unity spoke through resonance.
The world remembered how to breathe.
The mountain became light incarnate.
Life returned as laughter eternal.
Memory became light, and the light endured forever.